Hello and welcome to Next Chapter Raise. I'm Diana Dora here. Well, on today's show, we're going to talk books, and in particular one that will resonate with our female founder audience in particular. It's called Female Entrepreneurs, The Secrets of Their Success. And joining me now are the authors of the book, Ruth Saunders and John Smythe. Great to have you both here with us. It is a book that I think almost was written for our members and our wider community. Let's start by talking about the book. You've interviewed 52 entrepreneurs. Whereabouts did they come from?
They came originally from a list of 26 that I jotted down in 2017. It was the anniversary of my mother's passing, and she had in her life sought to keep me with her, having lost her husband in a flying accident. And it occurred to me in 2017 that she showed many of the qualities that entrepreneurs show. And at that point, I jotted down the names of what turned out to be 26 female entrepreneurs and thought, wow, that's amazing. So it came just like a stream of consciousness, and I invited them all to dinner in London's Groucho Club in the autumn of 2017, including Ruth, obviously. And one of them said this would make a great book, wouldn't it? And the 26 then, with Ruth's ideas and network, grew rapidly to 52.
And are they mainly in the UK and Europe, or are they spread globally?
They're mainly in the UK and Europe. They're mainly in the UK. There's nothing very scientific about the list. It was simply, here's the 26 that I knew, here's the ones that Ruth knew, and then over time, some of those would then recommend their friends. So it was sort of self-generating, if you like, as opposed to a scientific exercise.
Now, the title of the book is Female Entrepreneurs, The Secrets of Their Success. So I feel compelled to ask, what are the secrets?
Well, there are many of them, obviously, throughout the book. I think some of my favorite ones are that if you want to be an entrepreneur, you can be it. The biggest determinant of success is determination and desire to do it. We had entrepreneurs who didn't even know their ideas before they started. But they went out looking for them. So they were so keen to be an entrepreneur, they went out looking for an idea that they could do, either one that met an issue that they had, or one that somebody else was passionate about but couldn't commercially get it to grow, or whatever it was. So I think that determination and passion came through really strongly in the interviews as a key driver of success.
It's interesting.
And I'd add to that, the secrets. It's reconciling determination and patience. On the one hand, these are very determined people with very high energy and a great desire to do things quickly. Unfortunately, the evidence suggests that startups take a long time to take root and to become profitable. So in one example, Mumsnet, founded by Justine Roberts, that took 8 years to become profitable. You've got to be awfully patient to hang in there with all the failures and ups and downs and challenges and successes on the way. And a lot of our other 52 spoke about this terrible paradox between, on the one hand, wanting to get there, and on the other, realizing it's a bit like farming. You can't miss and shortcut. You've got to go the distance. So that would be another one. I think another reflection that many of the 52 would say is really know yourself. Get to know yourself before you embark on your journey. And this is where the patience really begins. And getting to know yourself either through friends, through family, through a partner at home, possibly through diagnostics, anything which gives you a vision of who you are in terms of your strengths and your weaknesses, so that you can fill the gaps, the weaknesses, with other people who bring skills that you do not have. So you end up with a rounded team as opposed to a load of lookalikes who are all have the same strengths. That would be a recipe for disruption. And the other aspect of knowing thyself is knowing your control needs. Just how much do you have to be in charge of everything? Are you willing to delegate and share power with other partners? If you're not, then best not to have other partners, best to have employees and associates where the power is recognized as being yours. If, on the other hand, you can share power and make yourself do it, you're probably going to grow a bigger business faster.
Did you find that with the 52 you interviewed that they knew the answer to the power question before they began, or was it a trial and error thing, thinking that perhaps they wanted to partner with someone and then after a while discovered, you know what, I'm actually better off doing this on my own?
It's a great question. I'm going to jump in. I think I would say that it was the realization that they had. In other words, they didn't start out on day one going, oh, I better find out who I am and what my control needs are. But I think through a period of trial and error and realizing that some combinations of people weren't working because actually I need to be in control of this thing or whatever. So it was more a journey of self-discovery and mishap.
There were certainly some entrepreneurs who started off with partners and broke off from them because they realized it wasn't working. And there were other entrepreneurs who started off on their own, but then realized that they needed to have strong people around them to support them. And so brought other people on board. So we have people go both ways on it.
Sometimes it's a courage question or issue that women, perhaps more so than male entrepreneurs, are nervous about taking that step and feel less so if they're spreading the risk either through a family and friends or an angel investment or with another partner who can share the load, but also, as I said, share the risk.
I wouldn't say that women are more nervous. I didn't get any sense of that. I think there are a lot of women out there who go, I really want to be an entrepreneur. I've got a great idea. I just want to do it. And I think they're often propelled to do it because the commercial world is not, the corporate world is not working for them anymore. So we had lots of women who left the corporate world either because they had young family and their job required them to travel or to work late, and their company told them, we'll put you into a second tier career role so that you can manage your children. And they said, that's unacceptable. I want to be in a top tier role. I want to be driving at the height of my career, my business. And therefore they stepped away from the corporate role so they could have a great career and children. Or we had women in typically their late 20s, early 30s, who were in a corporate role, who felt that there were no senior females around and the working environment was very masculine. And therefore they couldn't aspire to being in a senior role in the company and therefore wanted to leave. And so this kind of propelled them to go out and find an idea and make it happen. So I didn't get a sense of nervousness or fear. I got in many ways a sense of more drive to do it because the corporate world just didn't work anymore for them.
So I probably said nervousness. It's more that the data shows that women tend to be a bit more risk averse and therefore perhaps sometimes less willing to jump into something where they don't know what the outcome is.
Well, obviously our 52 I think showed the opposite of that, really. We just didn't get much sense of, yeah, we got stuff around, sometimes my confidence is a bit off and stuff like that. But with regard to the central idea, with regard to getting out there and doing it, not much hesitation at all. In fact, with many of them, a serious lack of hesitation.
It's interesting that there were women out there looking for ideas rather than finding an idea and trying to monetize it. I find that really extraordinary. What percentage of the 52 do you think reflected in that kind of philosophy, if you like?
We had 6 catalysts for reasons for starting a business. One of them was childhood influences. Either their parents were entrepreneurs or they did something in their childhood that caused them to get into a business idea early on. Two of them were the corporate ones we talked about, the having a young family or not finding the corporate world working anymore. The fourth one was around survival. Often refugees coming in, I can't get a job in a typical position, I need to find something to do. And then the other two were around either having a great idea or finding a great idea. And that was often solving a life problem. So we had a great example of somebody who needed fish oil capsules for pregnancy, and she couldn't get high-end ones in the UK. So she went and found them, she created them, she made it happen, and now those are on sale in the UK. So that was fixing a life problem. That was quite common. Or social responsibility. I want to do something that is more socially responsible in this area. So socially responsible companies. And the last one was around a passion. So I've actually got a passion that I love, and therefore I make that into a business. So the finding a great idea, that group split into people who went looking for an idea, and often it might have been somebody else's idea. We had a great example of one entrepreneur who literally took a year out and went traveling to find her idea because she knew she wanted to leave the corporate world. And she found it by hanging out with entrepreneurs. She did yoga teaching, and she met somebody who had a great idea but wasn't commercial, and they together started a business.
What was the business?
So
I have to ask now.
It's a very big one. It's rivaling Coke. It's functional drinks. It's drinks that have a functional property to them, medicinal kind of property to them, and you buy them in the supermarket. And it's thriving as a business. It's amazing. It's big. It's not small.
It's called Botanic Lab. It's called Botanic Lab.
Botanic Lab. We'll have to look that one up. As we know, something like 60% of businesses fail within the first 3 years. Was there any kind of common denominator that allowed these women to get beyond that? And if so, what was it?
Many of them had failures. Many of them had failures.
Yeah, so I love this.
Failures.
This for me was a major insight around fear of failure. So some people embraced failure and some people were frightened of it. And the people that had learned to embrace it were the ones that had typically become very successful, because they realized that when you have a failure, if you analyze what's causing the failure and then you course correct, it tends to lead to your next growth spurt. So we had one person, Victoria Meller, I think she'd reinvented her business 3 times. I mean, seriously reinvented her business due to failures. And she ended up selling that business for tens of millions of dollars because every failure she used as a course correction to get to something that was successful. So a lot of them had failed on the way and had learned to embrace failure as something as a positive.
Yes, it's you haven't failed, you just learned how not to do it. So was it then a psychological common denominator, those who failed who then went on to succeed after they pivoted, or was it something else?
I think the people that had grown into very big companies had failed on the way. They'd learned to embrace this failure. They'd been through so many kind of bumps on the road that they'd learned to pivot from it and do something bigger. Obviously, people who were starting out more were more likely that hadn't really hit those bumps as much and therefore hadn't learned to embrace failure in the same way. But it was a big lesson for me in terms of failure is a good thing, it's not a bad thing.
And I think the sort of language that they use, particularly the ones that had grown through failure, saw failure as essential on the journey, because what it did was take them out of the wrong pathway and put them back on the right road. So they welcomed it, because otherwise they probably would have trudged on in a mediocre fashion down the middle lane as opposed to being in the fast lane. So that there was a lot of positivity about failure.
Which is it's an important thing to talk about, and I'm glad that these founders have in the book. Now, in terms of the makeup of these female entrepreneurs, what percentage of them fundraised, and what kind of fundraising did they do, or did they all bootstrap?
So the stats on fundraising is appalling globally, particularly in the UK, but certainly globally as well. So less than 1% of VC funding goes to companies that are founded by all females, and only 8%, a further 8% goes to companies that are founded by at least one female. That means 91% of funding goes to companies that are founded by men. Is huge. And this is a fundamental issue that in many ways causes some of the risk aversion. So females are forced to fund either through remortgaging their house, or friends and family, or crowdfunding, or flipping the credit cards. And many of our women did that. Many of them did that. Not all of them. Some of them got some VC funding, but many of them were doing the remortgaging, or friends and family, or mates of mates, or whatever. And that causes a lot, in some part, the risk aversion, because they don't have access to huge sums of money to be able to ramp up quickly. And that then comes through in the stats later in terms of I think it's 29% of companies founded by men get to over $1 million in turnover, whereas only 13% of those founded by women. And that's because they're not getting access to the capital. The reason for not getting access to the capital is because a lot of investors are men, the vast majority are men, and they prefer to invest in ideas that they get, that they relate to. Often developed by men, not by women. And also they prefer to invest in people that adhere to their idea of what a confident entrepreneur looks like. And that's typically a hoodie geek or whatever, not some less confident looking woman. And so women struggle the whole time in these investor meetings that are often all male investors interviewing them, and they struggle to get the funding. So this is, I think, one of the biggest issues that female entrepreneurs face.
They do indeed. One of the things that we found in our community and beyond is that sometimes women don't know about all the funding options out there. They think there's either your credit card, bank loan, friends and family, and then straight to an angel and VC. That everything from government grants to accelerators, there are so many different options out there. Did that come up in the interviews, that they had tried for a range of funding options, but the only thing that they were able to succeed with was either getting a bank loan or a family and friends round?
I think most of them just relied on their inner circle. We didn't get much impression of people looking around until the business had grown and it required more capital to grow again. So I think at the beginning, most of these people said, well, look, we'll use our own funds, we'll use our friends, our networks, our mortgages and so on.
How well equipped were they? Oh, go ahead. Sorry, Ruth.
We did have female entrepreneurs who are now more successful, who are trying to support women to get more access to different types of funds, government funding you mentioned. So one of our female entrepreneurs works with a government body to try and help support female entrepreneurs to get more access to both funding and mentoring. So certainly as female entrepreneurs have got more experience, they're giving back in a way in trying to help other new female entrepreneurs come through.
How well prepared were those women once their business had grown to a certain level and then required funds to scale? How well prepared were they for that investment discussion?
We had one entrepreneur who said the easy bit is starting the business, the hard bit is scaling it. Yeah. And I think when you make that decision to scale, there's a lot of issues that come into play. One of them clearly being funding, and how you're going to get that funding and how then you're going to manage that funding, because it becomes almost like a full-time job for the founder. But another one being team structure. So how are you going to build a team around you where you can let go and delegate, so that you're not a bottleneck, but you can trust the people around you to be able to make it happen, and then cascade down through the organization. So there are a lot of big issues that come up at that point that people have to reorientate around, funding being one of them, team clearly being another big one for people.
So do they talk about the lack of knowledge or education in terms of being able to negotiate that next chapter?
So yes, they did. They talked about they're fumbling along the whole time. As they get to the next step, they're trying to work out how to grasp the step, what the key issues are, and often they'll make mistakes. And so we had somebody who very clearly was wrestling with letting go of power. She was recognizing that she was now a bottleneck. Her company got to such a size that she needed to put in people around her that she trusted. And that was fundamental to the next stage of growth. So you can see these people they go into it not quite understanding the repercussions of their decisions, and then they're trying to grapple with them and fix them and solve them. And that may take a little bit of time, and they may make some mistakes on the way. So certainly lack of knowledge and awareness of what you need to tackle was very apparent in people.
And I think they would say that it's such a big shift moving from a one-person startup, a small team, if you like, to having multiple operations in many locations. And there's a real change of leadership style, which those original founders or founder must impose upon herself or himself. And that having that insight to recognize that what powered the initial takeoff was going to get in the way of phase 2, and as they themselves learned how to step back and learn to listen and enable and facilitate, as opposed to leading from the front.
What are some of the best founder stories in the book? Give us your three favourites, if there is such a thing.
I'll kick off with The Longest Stay by Sherry Roberts, who's an American, a fantastic character. Her life story is vivid, to say the least. The story started with marrying Giovanni, an Italian, and that being a wonderful thing. And then it turned out, in all the while she was trying to raise £350,000 to get The Longest Stay up in the air. And in the course of that, she found out that her husband Giovanni had been pretty much a lifelong drug user. And then not long after that, Giovanni died of a stroke. The Italian family left her with no funds, so she just bundled her cats and dogs into her little car, drove back to London, started out all over, and at that point, in due course, managed to find a funder. And I've condensed the story somewhat, but it was a story of ups and downs and of unimaginable peaks and troughs. And yet, in the telling of the story, although it's obviously severely taxed her, you could see the real, true, robust character saw her through. So that would be one from me.
That determination.
Yeah, I think for me, I love the fact we interviewed Verity aged 11, and Verity started working when she was 4 as an actor. And I know her parents, and it wasn't her parents pushing her. They were a bit concerned about it. She was determined to do it. And by the age of 11, she's an actress and a film producer. And she's already helping people in their 20s produce films. And she was as wise as a 50, 60-year-old. She said, Ruth, don't do it for the money. If you do it for the money, it's never going to succeed. And then at the other end of the scale, we interviewed a lady who started her business in her 60s after she'd retired, because she loved baking cakes and she wanted to be known for baking great cakes and selling them in village fetes and in the local community. And that's what she did. And she started her business and is loving it, thriving on it. And I love that you can start a business any age, any stage. And if you want to do it, do it. I love that.
What great.
I'll just add one more. Elizabeth Calper is a person who held down an HR director's post for an American fashion house, Coach. She started her own online business on the side, and at the same time was the single mother to 3 young children. I mean, that is a story of spinning a lot of plates. And WOMO, Working Mothers, is now launching, so she's coming out the other side after a terrific trial, so to speak.
Sounds like some extraordinary stories in there. We've only got a couple of minutes left, so let's just focus. I want to ask two last questions. One, what are the biggest conclusions that you can draw after having interviewed these women?
I think for me, it's if you want to do it, do it. If you want to be in the corporate world, be in the corporate world. If you want to be an entrepreneur, be an entrepreneur. Anybody can do it. Anybody can do it. Any age and life stage. You can be a one-person business. You can be a small team. You can be a big business. Whatever you want. Whatever you want to do. But I think the most important thing, and we got this advice a lot from our entrepreneurs, is whatever you do, be passionate about it. Want to do it. It's really important to enjoy the journey, because it will be bumpy at times, and if you're not passionate about it, it's hard to keep going. So do something you love, do something that matters to you, do something that you really enjoy, and then the success will come.
And I just add another one, which is men find it easier to celebrate their successes, and women, we were told, find it much harder. And I think the message from the 52 is, don't be shy. If you're getting there, celebrate for yourself and celebrate your people's successes. Go out there and bang the drum.
Be your own best promoter. On that note, thank you very much. Where can everybody buy this fantastic book?
Amazon.
So it is available on Amazon, Waterstones. It's available, I'm told, in most countries in the world, so you should be able to find it if you go online. So hopefully it's there.
Wonderful news. Listen, very much enjoyed our chat. Ruth Saunders, John Smythe, thank you very much. I think this is, as I said, tailor-made for our community, and I'm sure we'll see sales off the back of this. And you know what? Can't wait for your next book.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure. Thank you
All
for
the
joining
best.
us.
Thank you.